Everyone thinks Paulie Walnuts was a character. The tracksuits, the slicked hair, the paranoia, the way he'd flip from laughing to violent in half a second. They think some actor studied Mob Guys and built that performance from scratch. They're wrong. The man who played Paulie Walnuts had 28 arrests, 7 years in prison, 2 bullet wounds, and a real history with the Colombo crime family. He wasn't acting, he was remembering. Gennaro Anthony Sirico Jr. was born July 29, 1942 in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. Not the glamorous part of New York, the cramped working class part. 5 kids in a small apartment, father in construction, mother holding everything together. The kind of neighborhood where everyone knew everyone and nobody talked to cops. By age 7, Tony was already running errands for the local wise guys, delivering packages, watching cars. The mobsters would flip him $1 and send him on his way. To a kid from Bensonhurst, these men looked like kings. Suits, Cadillacs, respect. Tony wanted that. At 13, he dropped out of school. Why sit in a classroom when the real education was happening on the corner? He started hanging around social clubs where connected guys played cards, ran numbers, and discussed business. Tony watched, he learned, he understood the hierarchy, and he wanted in. His first arrest came at 19, assault and robbery. He'd stuck up a nightclub in Manhattan with 2 friends, got caught, did a few months. When he got out, he didn't stop. He escalated. Because in that world, you prove yourself through action, you show you're willing to take risks, you demonstrate you won't break. Through the 1960s, Tony Sirico became a familiar face in Brooklyn's criminal underworld. He ran with crews connected to the Colombo family. Not a made man, he wasn't Italian enough on both sides, but a trusted associate. The kind of guy you call for stick-ups, armed robbery, high-risk, high-reward work that required nerve and silence. He dressed the part perfectly, slicked back hair, pinky rings, silk shirts. He walked with a swagger that said, "Don't mess with me," and he meant every word of it. By the late 60s, Tony had a reputation, serious earner, guy who didn't back down, a temper that could flip from charming to violent in seconds. That made him valuable. It also made him dangerous to everyone around him, including himself. Arrest number 5, felony weapons possession. Arrest number 9, extortion. Witnesses changed their stories, case dropped. Then came arrest number 12, and this one was different. December 1971, Brooklyn. A warehouse robbery goes wrong, cops get called, shots fired, Tony takes 2 bullets, one grazes his leg, the second lodges near his spine, he gets arrested from his hospital bed, facing 20 years. Tony made the calculation that would define the rest of his life. He could cooperate, cut a deal, maybe walk in 2 years, or he could stand up, take his sentence, keep his reputation on the street. He chose the second option, no cooperation, no testimony. He pled guilty, took 4 years, and walked into Sing Sing Correctional Facility in Ossining, New York. Maximum security, violent, overcrowded, guards who didn't care, inmates who settled disputes with shanks. Tony did his time hard, solitary confinement, multiple times, for fighting. He wasn't the kind of man who backed down just because the walls closed in. But something happened that nobody expected. Tony started attending the prison theater program, a volunteer-run acting class. He'd never thought about performing before, but in prison, you take what distractions you can find. And Tony discovered something. He was good at it. He could command a room. He had natural timing, and when he played tough guys, street guys, wise guys, it didn't feel like acting. It felt like Tuesday. The acting coach saw it immediately. Raw, unpolished, dangerous, but undeniably real. When Tony Sirico walked out of Sing Sing in 1975, he was 33 years old. Most men coming out of a 4-year stretch go straight back to the life. It's what they know. It's where they're comfortable. Tony thought about it differently. He'd seen guys die young. He'd seen guys get life. He'd taken bullets. Maybe there was another way to use what he had. He started showing up to auditions, small theater productions, off Broadway. Directors would take one look at him and know exactly what they were looking at. A real Brooklyn street guy, no acting required. He got cast as thugs, criminals, mob enforcers, because that's what he'd been. The transition wasn't dramatic. He was still playing himself, just with cameras around. His first real role came in 1977, a small part in Crazy Joe, a film about Joey Gallo. Tony played a mob soldier, barely any lines, but he looked right, he moved right, he talked right. because he'd spent 15 years living exactly that life. Through the late 70s and early 80s, Tony worked steadily. Small parts, always criminals. He wasn't getting rich, but he was staying out of prison. That counted for something. But the streets kept calling. Old friends, old habits. Between acting jobs, Tony slipped back into familiar patterns. Arrest 16, arrest 20. Nothing serious enough to send him back for real time, but enough to keep one foot in the old world. He was living a double life. In 1989, arrest number 28. The final one? Tony was 47 years old, 28 arrests, serious prison time behind him. His luck was running out, and he knew it. He made a decision, no more. Done with the streets, acting only, legitimate work, no going back. That decision changed everything. Through the 90s, Tony Sirico became a recognizable face in mob movies. He appeared in Goodfellas in 1990, a small role, uncredited, but standing on a set with Martin Scorsese, Ray Liotta, and Robert De Niro, he kept grinding. Mob movies loved him because he brought something no drama school could teach. He didn't have to fake the accent. He didn't have to learn the slang. When he said forget about it, it sounded exactly right, because he'd been saying it since 1950. Then, in 1998, the call came. HBO was developing a new series about the New Jersey mob. They needed someone to play Paulie Walnuts, a mid-level soldier, paranoid, violent, loyal, superstitious, never married, lived with his mother, obsessed with respect. Tony read the script and saw himself. But Tony had one condition. He walked into the meeting with David Chase and made it clear he would take the role, but Paulie could never be a rat, never cooperate with law enforcement, never break the code, not for dramatic purposes, not for storyline, not for any reason. Tony Sirico refused to play a man who violated the one rule he'd lived his entire life by. David Chase agreed. And that single condition defined Paulie Walnuts for 6 seasons. While other characters on The Sopranos flipped, wore wires, and cooperated, Paulie remained dangerously loyal, stubbornly loyal, sometimes stupidly loyal, because Tony Sirico would not have it any other way. The Sopranos premiered January 10th, 1999, and became a cultural phenomenon overnight. And Paulie Walnuts, petty, paranoid, occasionally cruel, became one of the most beloved characters on television. Not because he was likable, because he was real. Every mannerism came from somewhere, the way Paulie slicked his hair. Tony had known vain wise guys like that, men who understood that image was power. The superstitions, Tony had lived with guys in prison who believed in all of it. The mother devotion, Tony had visited his own mother throughout his criminal years, brought her money, made sure she was taken care of. That contradiction, loving your mother while living a violent life, wasn't a character choice. It was autobiography. Michael Imperioli, who played Christopher Tamor. Moltisanti, said Tony would tell stories between takes. Real stories. Stick-ups he'd pulled. Guys he'd known who got killed. Time in Sing Sing. The other actors listened like students because Tony Sirico was their only direct connection to the world they were pretending to inhabit. One story became legendary on set. Tony described getting shot in '71. He said when the first bullet hit, there was no immediate pain, just impact, like a hard punch. The second one near his spine, that one dropped him. He thought he was going to die on a warehouse floor in Brooklyn. He told it casually, like describing a traffic jam. Because in his world, getting shot was simply an occupational hazard. The show ran 6 seasons, 86 episodes. Tony appeared in 73 of them. Fans dressed as Paulie for Halloween, quoted his lines, bought the merchandise. And real mobsters, men who had actually lived the life, watched the show and respected Tony Sirico because they knew he wasn't performing, he was reporting. In his final interviews, Tony spoke about everything with honesty. He didn't brag about the arrests. He didn't minimize the violence. He said he'd done bad things, hurt people, made terrible choices. But he also said this: acting saved my life. If he hadn't found that prison theater program in Sing Sing, he'd probably be dead or serving life somewhere. Acting gave him an exit from a road that only ends 2 ways. He talked about the guys who didn't make it out, friends killed in mob disputes, associates who died in prison, men who got life sentences for things they did at 20 years old. Tony Sirico easily could have been one of them. James Gandolfini said it best. Tony brought a danger to set that was valuable, not threatening, Just real. You knew you were working with someone who had actually lived this. That kept everyone honest. Tony Sirico died July 8th, 2022. He was 79 years old, 28 arrests, 7 years in prison, 2 bullet wounds. One iconic character and a code he never broke. Not on the streets, not on screen, not once in his entire life. That's the real man behind Paulie Walnuts. That's the truth the Sopranos never had to make up.